Welcome back to Proline. This week, we're going to introduce a college basketball game. We're not going to forget about football because we got some college games coming up, and the NFL is getting red hot right now. Let's talk about this Kentucky-North Carolina game. North Carolina, in name only, because these players, this team is not what we usually get out of North Carolina. Yes, they have the big-name coach, they got the big school, but they're not playing that well. They lose the other night to Illinois. Kentucky's young. They're really young, but they've got some talent. Dave, what do you think about this match?
Well, Kentucky's one-and-done university because that's he's getting all these guys that, they're outstanding players, but they're not going to be sticking around long. So sometimes there's a lack of fluidity, if you will. But, boy, I'll tell you what, the big kid they've got that Washington was supposed to have, but it's landed at Kentucky instead, he can play.
Talking about Terrence Jones?
Yeah, and North Carolina's got their big kid as well, who's going to be a one-and-done player. The problem is that North Carolina's guard play it's horrendous. It's a funny thing about college basketball recruiting. Once these college basketball recruiting services, once one of them lands on a guy, all of a sudden it becomes like epic, and everybody jumps on the ship. But they miss as often as they get them right. And it looks like North Carolina's, the last couple of years, have gotten the guys who might have been more hyped than reality. Their guards can't play. Larry Drew, he still looks like he's never seen a college basketball court to me. I know he's the son of an NBA player, very highly touted coming out of high school, but he wasn't good last year, and he hasn't been any better this season for North Carolina. They've got some real problems both offensively and defensively in the backcourt. Despite the fact that Kentucky's inexperienced, I think they just got better players, and their big men will neutralize North Carolina's big men. So I'm going to look for the Wildcats to get the job done on the road here.
Yeah, I was just out at the Maui Invitational out in, Hawaii, and I got to see Kentucky play firsthand. I watched some incredible games, including that game against Connecticut, where Connecticut won the title. And my takeaway from that is that this Terrence Jones is going to be the number one pick of the NBA draft. Indeed, there were a lot of NBA scouts out there with me at the tournament, and about 20 of them, and there's 3 people who disagreed, but 20 of the 23 said Terrence Jones is the number one pick in the draft when he comes out. That's how good this kid is. And the other takeaway I took was that John Calipari, you don't really get this when you watch the games on TV. He's one of the most intense coaches on the sideline, and he's always coaching his teams. I mean, he pulls them out of the game, and he's right in their face when they're on the bench, and he puts them back in, and he's always coaching throughout the game. And I really love the job he's doing with Kentucky. Now, Dave, you mentioned they're kind of one and done because all these kids, they play 1 year, they go to the NBA, but he's going to be great, and I think this year they might win it all because they're going to progress as the season goes on, and by the end of the year, they're going to be really something. In this game, it's still early in the season. We don't yet know where the line's going to go on game day, and if North Carolina's a home dog, then watch out because they're terrible as a home dog going back to 1993. 4 wins, 13 losses. So that's something to keep a look on as to the exact number on the game. I'm going to side with Kentucky here, and especially if they're favored in this ball game.
I'll tell you what, you talk about one and done university as far as Kentucky's concerned. A couple years down the road, it might be caught and crucified for this program because of Calipari's past record. They don't pay a lot of attention, apparently, to what guys are doing in their high school transcripts. And I think, he's got this great advantage. It's my own personal opinion, by the way, but he's obviously got this great recruited advantage in that he does look to just get you in there for a season. He is almost an NBA go-between or stepping stone for the next level. So, of course, the NBA likes him. And he's not worried about getting guys through their college career. You don't have to stick around for 3 or 4 years and get a degree. So there is a huge advantage there. He's also got a great advantage of having some fantastic and terrific players right now, as everybody's already mentioned in this particular game. Here's the problem with North Carolina, and Jim mentioned they are North Carolina in name only, no doubt about it. I went against them earlier this week and cashed easily when the Illini crushed them by a dozen points in that contest. You're not going to get a lot more value going against North Carolina now because that was on national TV. Everybody saw what North Carolina is made of, and when Roy Williams does call it quits, I think this program is going to have a tough time keeping it past North Carolina levels because you're going to have a coaching coup to get this team back on top. They're just not recruiting well. Even Roy Williams, as Dave mentioned, is bringing in overrated recruits. Now, what I like about what Al just said, they got Terrence Jones for Kentucky. You got a guy like Brandon Knight, you got a guy like Irving. They're not even the top player on this particular basketball team. Here's what North Carolina's done. They're terrible on the road. They're 3-0 at home going into this game, but 2 of those 3 home wins came against Asheville by 12 or 14 points. They beat Lipscomb by only 12 or 14 points. These are teams and programs that North Carolina used to beat by 35 to 40 points. They're not that good anymore. I got to back the Kentucky Wildcats on this one, and it might sound squarish, but I'm going to back him here. I think Kentucky gets the job done.
You know what's interesting, by the way, is that this one-and-done route, I mean, it's attractive to go after these players, no question about that, but it's a dangerous road to go down because if you miss, you can really put your program in dire straits. Now, North Carolina's, it's pretty bad when North Carolina only can make it to the NIT, and they're no lock for their dance this year. And look at Georgia Tech, because they've gone that one-and-done route. That program's a disaster right now.
I forgot to mention about that, too. Last year, it took everything for North Carolina to win 20 out of 37 games. They were 20-17. They lost 4 big players from last year's team, along with Marcus Ginyard. And you're talking about a combined 41 points and 25 boards per game that they lost, and that team was only 20-17. I think it's going to be a long season for the Eels.
Well, it's about taking the money and running now. These kids need the money, they're offered big contracts by the NBA. And why shouldn't they take the bucks? And the one and done is affecting college.
But that's why it's a bad rule. That's why I criticize the rule. It's a joke. This one and done thing.
What rule is bad?
That they can't go to professional basketball or the NBA specifically out of high school. Why? They're just taking up space in college for the most part. It's absurd. It's
opinion has always
professionalism.
been if we're living in a free society and they want to go make a living so they can support their family, even though they might be too young to have a family, they can help their parents, help their brothers and sisters go to school. If we're a free society, they should be able to. It's almost like saying,
I'm all for
Tony Parker was playing at 16.
Right.
You know, all the Europeans, they play at 16, 17 years old over there.
Splitter, wasn't he 13 when he started?
Yeah. Over here, you got to spend a year in school.
It's almost, not to, I hate to say it, but it's kind of racist. It really is, because in baseball.
So white guys are allowed to play?
Well, in baseball, stop and think about it. In baseball,
right,
which is a sport that, right now at least,
Latinos.
from a racial standpoint, the white kids
there's
are
a lot
playing
of
baseball.
Latinos.
But I'm talking in this country.
Right.
In baseball, you can turn pro right out of high school. So how is it legit and equal?
Can I say this? Maybe what it is this. Maybe it's the fact that basketball is high profile, and basketball and baseball nobody cares about. Nobody really cares about college baseball.
But the fact is, in baseball, this is amazing.
Guys, it's obvious what the reason is why the NFL and basketball. It's because we have a college system supporting those two things.
Well, we don't
have that in baseball. We don't have that. Yeah.
Well, but it's
a partnership with the NCAA is what it is.
Well, first of all, you come from a law background. Has anybody challenged this rule in the Supreme Court, taken it to the Supreme Court and asked, why can we suppress these kids and stop them from making a living when they want to go to work?
I don't know.
That would be interesting to find out.
You understand, in baseball, by the way, everybody knows who Scott Boras is. He's the biggest agent out there. He's been advising Bryce Harper since Harper was in high school. They call it an advisor, not an agent. In the NBA, if you see what's going on in football and basketball, I've even talked to a guy who's an agent. It's like, whoa, that's it. What a joke.
Well,
the hypocrisy is unbelievable.
This isn't a political show, folks, but we do get involved, and we do have opinions, right or wrong. We do have them. We'll right back. We got some college football to look at. This is it. This Sunday, my pro game of the year wins. I've isolated a play so strong, it can only be released as the biggest game of the 2010 NFL season. Cash in with this huge winner, as well as a pair of big game releases on Saturday in college hoops and football, including a $500 platinum play, all for just $25. Then take it home Sunday with my 2010 pro game of the year. I'm 11-3-1. That's 79% with this annual release since 1995. And this Sunday, I'm guaranteeing an easy winner, or the rest of the NFL season is free on me. Make the call right now. 1-866-841-1655 for a monster weekend featuring my pro game of the year. That's 1-866-841-1655.
Hi, I'm Al McMorty. I'm on absolute fire. Our Vegas Strip moves this year 24-3, 88% winners. And this week we're featuring the best deal of the entire season. You get a week of our Vegas Strip move plays, it's just $25. And amongst our winners is our Vegas Strip move Conference Championship Game of the Year. This play is out of a 17-0 system that's never lost in 31 years. And the 18th winner in a row is this Saturday. Call right now, toll free, 866-896-1628. 1 week of our powerful Vegas Strip moves, football and basketball, only $25. Call right now, 866-896-1628, and get on board and win big this week.
Okay, we're back. We got college football. We don't have much college football going forward with the regular season, but we do have bowls. But this is a big game. Oregon, who's, if they win, they're going to go to the national championship and probably play Auburn unless they lose, and then maybe TCU. How about that Boise, Nevada game last week? I mean, my goodness, was that a great game? I feel sorry for that kicker. I mean, he played well all season long. He misses two big. I probably choked. I mean, there was a lot of pressure in that situation. And here's a team that's ahead by 50 points every time he comes on the field, so he never has any pressure. But now he has pressure. This game here, this is a huge rivalry. Oregon visiting Oregon State, huge in-state rivalry. You know Oregon State's going to be geared up for this. Got a pretty big point spread on this, Scott. 16, Oregon's favored by on the road at Oregon State. Rivalry, who wins it?
And weather at last check looks like 40 degrees, but it's not going to be bad as far as it looks like. No rain in the forecast right now, and the winds aren't supposed to be bad. Quickly about Boise State. This is what Al and I were talking about way back in weeks 2 and 3, is that we just don't feel, at least I still don't, that TCU or Boise State should be playing for national title without a playoff system, because they only have to bring their A game 2 or 3 times a year. They brought their B- game, and they got beat by a okay Nevada football team. Okay, because they don't play defense at Reno. And whether you had Nevada or not the other night, they should not be beating national championship contenders. I don't care if they're playing in Reno, Nevada, or on the road or wherever.
I could take the opposite side of this.
Here's the thing.
But I will say this, that if Boise and TCU played the kind of schedule that Alabama or LSU plays,
or the Big Ten, the Big 12,
any of those, the Big Ten really.
The Big East.
Week in and week out, it's hard to come up and play. When you're playing Louisiana Lafayette or who the hell they play, it's much easier to beat them 40-0 or 50-0. It definitely, there's a merit to say what you're saying.
But here's the thing. Let's just use the Sagarin numbers here, because they're pretty well accepted as solid computerized numbers. Strength of schedule this year. Boise State played a tougher schedule than Ohio State. Take that
Eye test. Boise State doesn't belong in the same speech or sentence as the Ohio State Buckeyes on a weekly basis. One game situation, they can beat anybody. But if you throw them in the SEC or the Big 12,
if Ohio State,
I'm talking about eye test.
If they played each other,
they don't have to play. No, that's what I'm saying. One game situation.
How about if they played each other 10 times?
I'll take Ohio State.
6 out of 10.
I was going to say 7.
All right, but the thing is, all I keep on hearing
But here's the difference.
Well, they don't play these teams week in and week out.
No, they don't,
Boise State played the 61st toughest schedule in the country. This is not exactly
They're playing the what, Dave? They're playing Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, but here's
their toughest opponent is Nevada.
Who's Ohio State's schedule?
Dave, here's the difference. You both are kind of right here, but here's the difference. Boise State plays 2 pretty good teams in Virginia Tech and Nevada. And then they play some crap
That's
team.
the whole thing.
Whereas Ohio State is playing
Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa.
The middle of the run teams, the B plus, those type of teams, the Indianas, the Illinois, the Michigans, the teams that aren't great but aren't awful, that can beat you on any given day. In the SEC, you play the Mississippis, you play the Kentuckys. These teams have a puncher's chance of beating you. Boise plays 8 games a year against garbage. Just absolute garbage.
Then how is their strength of schedule?
That's somebody's opinion with their little computer that they sit and punch in numbers.
The
point is, though, no matter who
nothing against it, but I never.
No matter who you play the entire year, whether it's college football, pro football, when it comes down to a game to play for the national championship, what we're saying is we deny them an opportunity because they didn't play a tough enough schedule. That's why we go back to the situation where we want to have a playoff system where you can take the top 8 teams and let them wiggle in there and figure out who the best team is. A couple of years ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the number 6 seed in the NFL, won the Super Bowl. It was a crappy game. They played Seattle. That was a horrible football game. 2 teams that were not anywhere near the standards of what the NFL produces as a championship.
Oh, but
that's what you had.
But wait. That Pittsburgh team was a great team that year. They upset Indianapolis on the road in that great game that almost got robbed from them. The Steelers were playing better than anyone.
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
But if you took their whole year, they didn't look that good.
But
at the end of the year, they got hot. And that can happen this year, too. We got a lot of teams out there right now in the NFL.
Pittsburgh and any NFL team has to bring their A game every week.
Yeah.
Boise State brings it 3 times a year. That's all they have to bring it.
You don't need an A game.
Here's TCU.
You don't need an A game to beat Carolina.
And not only that,
you mean to say Ohio State needs an A game to beat Minnesota?
No, but maybe 7 or 8 times a year.
Like that?
7 or 8 times a year they got to bring their A game.
And here's
7 or 8 times a year.
I would disagree with that.
TCU's toughest opponent is either Utah or Oregon State. That's their toughest opponent this season. You're going to tell me they belong in the same breath as Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn?
That's where I'm going to disagree with you. San Diego State's a good football team.
They're not their toughest opponent.
Air Force is a good football team.
They're not their toughest opponent.
I understand that, but you're basically saying that the only team TCU played was Utah and Oregon State. Well, you know what? San Diego State's pretty good.
You don't have to bring your A game to beat San Diego State and Air Force. You don't. You absolutely do.
And you don't need it to beat.
That's my opinion.
And you don't need it to beat most of the Big Ten. And you know what? You don't need it to beat a lot of the SEC.
We have difference in opinion. I respect yours, but how about Oregon State and Oregon?
What about this game?
We've got a director behind the scenes right now going, get on with it, guys.
Let me throw in something on this game. Oregon State will play their ass off in this game. And unfortunately, it's not going to matter because since they lost James Rodgers, they're really not very dangerous offensively. Riley hasn't had this team playing the same quality of football down the stretch he usually does. I think Oregon State will hang around for a while in this game, especially since Oregon's had some flat first halves. But eventually the Ducks are going to run them out of the stadium, and they're going to win the game by more than the spread in all likelihood, in my opinion.
Here's the bottom line. None of these opinions are wrong on what we just said, by the way. Just a difference of opinions.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is Oregon State now. I like the total in this one. 8 straight times these two teams have gone over the total. And the thing is they're averaging about 70.5 points per game in those 8 contests going back to 2002. Now, a lot of times you say, okay, 8-0 on the over. It's probably going to switch back and start going under, but I don't think so. Oregon's defense has allowed 23 or more points in 5 of their 8 conference games. We know what Oregon State's defense does. They give up a ton of points. And you're right. It used to be that you play on Oregon State after the month of September under Riley, and they were cash cows. Not this year. They've lost 3 of their last 4 straight up and against the spread. They've given up a lot of points in doing so. In fact, I think it's over their last 5 or 6 games now, the winner of an Oregon State game, either the Beavers or their opponent, have scored an average of 35 points per game. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one, more scored by the Ducks than the Beavers, and I'm taking
one thing I forgot to mention, by the way, is that the one good game Oregon State's had down the stretch was USC, and USC was really flat that night. It was an awful night. It was raining. It was cold. Sure. Not exactly the weather the Trojans wanted in a game that they didn't care about. So I would say that performance by Oregon State was probably a little tainted, Al.
Well, here's the other thing you guys got to pay attention to this ballgame, and that's the point spread. I mean, Oregon's undefeated. They have to win. The odds makers know it. The betting public knows it. And if you look at what Oregon's numbers have been over the last few weeks, they're inflated. That's one of the reasons they didn't cover last week against Arizona. If they would have played Arizona in the middle of the season, they would have been favored by about 16. Last week, they were favored by 20. They win by 19, so it looks like an unsuccessful game, but that's only because you've got a lot of froth in the point spread. Here, the number's 16, 16.5. The number probably should be 12.5 or 13. I got to take the points here, and also teams playing their final game of the year at home when they have double revenge and they're catching 13 or more points. They cover the spread 60% over the last 31 years. Guys, I just think the number's way too high.
It is. I mean, there's no value in Oregon.
There's no question the number's inflated. The public wants to bet Oregon because this is the flashy team. The amazing thing about Oregon, not whether they're going to cover the spread here or not, I like the total. I really think there's going to be a ton of points in this game. I mean, you could put up a 75 or an 80 on this game. You might still end up at 90. But what this team does in the second half, they just wear you out.
Wow.
I mean, they don't huddle. They come out and they blow you. And bet the second half. When they put the number up, just bet Oregon in the second half. You make a fortune.
I tell you, and if Oregon loses, guys, I'm telling you, if they lose outright, I'm not coming in for work the next day because I've got them at 30-1 odds, and I think I might just jump off a ledge.
That's right. You're just sitting there.
The announcers on the Oregon game against Arizona, first half, they go, boy, Darren Thomas, he's just out of sync the last 2 weeks. He's really struggling. They end up scoring 49 points and win by 20. So
struggle real bad. We're coming right back. We got 2 NFL games to talk about.
Hi, everybody. Scott Spreitzer from Smash Mouth Sports. What a weekend we had last week. Again, bookend Game of the Year winners to surround the entire weekend. We started out on Saturday with our non-conference knockout Game of the Year win, Texas Tech over Houston, and we finished up strong Sunday night football Game of the Year when San Diego clobbered the Colts, and then we wrapped it up on Monday night, side and total winners in Monday Night Football, San Francisco and the under. We're going to rack it up. We're going to do it again this week. We've got our college football conference championship Game of the Year going on Saturday. We've got a big Sunday underdog Game of the Year in the NFL and a full week of college basketball and NBA, all for just $25. All you have to do is call 1-866-896-1627. Get in on the winning action with Smash Mouth Sports from start to finish. 1-866-896-1627. Just $25 gets it all.
Hi everyone, Dave Koken, and I'm ready to do it again. Last weekend, hope you're on board as I had my NFL Game of the Month, and it could not have been easier as the San Diego Chargers dismantled the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday night. Got another great offer for this weekend. It's my college basketball Game of the Month. Had this one circled before the season, and it looks like the circumstances for a big play are absolutely lined up perfectly. You're going to get that game, plus two of my premium personal service plays on Saturday, all for just $25. One big football game, another big NBA game, and my college basketball Game of the Month. And the whole thing, just $25. 1-866-841-1665. And just like last weekend, I'm kicking in a guarantee in the big game as well. Guaranteed college basketball Game of the Month winner. Two other premium plays, all for $25. Make the call now to 1-866-841-1665.
Welcome back to Proline. We're going to talk about some NFL games. I know the panel here has been doing great in the NFL, and we've got some big games to talk about. Broncos at the Chiefs. Now, a couple weeks ago, the Broncos destroyed the Chiefs 49-29, and at the end of the game, the coach, Todd Haley, refused to shake hands with the Denver coach. Now, the Denver coach is in all kinds of hot water. A lot of things going on up there. Questionable whether he's going to come back or not. Who knows what that's all about. But since Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel has gone to Kansas City, this team is different. They're the number one rushing team in the NFL, and Denver doesn't defend the run very well, Scott.
They don't do a lot of things very well, do they?
Well, Kyle Orton does a lot of things well.
No, I like Kyle Orton. You're right about that. The defense stinks on ice or turf or whatever, but they've given up 238 points in the last 7 games, and that's a whole lot of points. I really think that what happened a few weeks ago was a fluke more than anything else. It was like, man, the snowball started, and then it built into this huge, gigantic avalanche against Kansas City. I had no problem with what Todd Haley did after the game. The guy's really passionate about this year's Chiefs team. I love the hiring of both Crennel and Charlie Weiss. This is one of those teams, though, and Al and I have been on Kansas City pretty heavy since before the season began, but it's one of those teams where next year they might be 4-7 after 11 games.
Well,
there's a lot of
things going to play a tougher schedule, too.
Well, I was going to get to that, and also because they're getting a lot of things that are going their way. There's no doubt about it. And we see that in the NFL year after year, a surprise team come up and win 10 games, go to the playoffs, go deep into the playoffs, and then flop the next season. But in this particular football game, revenge is an overused term in sports, in sports betting, but I think it fits right here really well. First of all, I love what Todd Haley and his staff did after they lost to the Denver Broncos a few weeks ago. They could have let Denver beat them 2 weeks in a row. They could have really been upset about what happened in that game, getting blasted 49-29. They got over it like in an hour on the plane ride home, and they've come out the last 2 weeks and they played great football. They've outscored the last two opponents 73-37. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, the Denver Broncos, they've just been getting crushed. They had that one win over Kansas City. I believe it was a fluke. Their run defense is going to get punished in this one. Boy, it sounds awfully square or chalky again, but I'm going to back the Chiefs here. For me, it's the Chiefs or nothing despite the line move.
Hey, and remember, Scott, there's no such thing as a square side, only a square number. Dave?
Well, the thing is...
Well, it's a square number. Hold on. No, it's a square number now because it went from 6.5 to 8.5.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying square.
Okay, but it's...
Squares don't lose all the time.
They're 50-50.
Yeah. A lot of people...
Close.
Well, it's not 50-50.
No, I gotta contest with that. Squares don't win 50% of the time.
But they
don't. Pretty close.
But they don't lose 60% of the time.
No, it's a lot closer to 50 than 60.
Yeah. Here's I think the square side on the total in this game, that doesn't make sense, but the square total is probably the over. Guess what? It's got a good chance to go over because the Broncos still don't know how to stop the run. And the Broncos can still throw the football all over the place. They've got good receivers. These guys have been a little under the radar, but they can play.
Well, Kyle Orton
He's having a hell of a year.
He's not a bad quarterback.
No,
nobody ever gives a guy credit, but he plays pretty well.
He's got drawbacks, but he's not a bad player. The flip side of it is Matt Castle is getting trusted more and more in the Kansas City system. The guy can play.
Isn't he on an 18-1 run right now, touchdowns to interceptions?
He's on fire.
It's amazing.
I mean, his numbers have been going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And part of that is because of the fact that you can run. There's so many good things you can do if you can run the football. And boy, can the Chiefs run the football. Remember when they got questioned, so why are they getting Thomas Jones here? Why are they paying him all this money when they've already got Charles back there, who had such a good year last year? Well, now they got two feature backs. It's like they come at you in waves. One guy starts to wear down a little bit, and here comes the other guy. If you can run the football, you're going to win football games. Your quarterback's going to have a lot easier time. They're going to score on Denver. I think Denver returns the favor. He had 78 points the first time they scored. I don't know if they'll get to that number, but I think they're going to be in the 50s again, Al, and I like the game over the total.
Yeah, I actually like the game under the total. I'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to elaborate what we were talking about before about squares and sharps, just so people out there in TV land understand what we're saying. When I say there's no such thing as a square side, what I mean is that you can like one side or another. You don't have, if the game opens at 3 and moves to 5, you're a square if you lay 5.
And that's
you
what I'm saying about this number. It was 6.5, now it's 8.5. It's a square number.
The biggest myth out there is that there are square sides and that squares take one side. No, squares don't know how to bet because they don't bet into the best numbers. Sharps can take any side of a game. They'll always get the best number. Okay, going back to my point on the over-under, I like this game under the total. I think people are going to overreact to the last week. You had 60. Two NFL teams that combined for 65 points each. The last game, you had 42, 24, 66, 36, 33. That's 69. When it's 65 or more, both teams goes under the total 62% of the time, including 83% when the line's 45 or higher. The 49-29 game, I think, is also going to play into this. I'm going to take it under the total.
Kansas City's running the ball. If that's how they're winning, there's a chance the clock's going to keep moving. I can see that.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, you were right and I was wrong. There was a Buffalo-Kansas City game, and I had an over it. I think it ended up like 3-2 or something. So I was definitely wrong about that. But I really have to go with the over here, providing the weather is good on Sunday, and it's in Kansas City. You do have to check the weather for rain, especially wind. I'm going to go over the total because there's no defense on this field for Denver. I mean, Kansas City could score at will. Even though they run the ball a lot, Castle is red hot. He's going to hit his receivers. You're not going to slow Orton down. Nobody slows Orton down, even though they don't run the ball well. He passes the ball extremely well. In the NFL this year, 91 overs, 69 unders. Last week was an under week. But because of the rule changes that have happened over the last 5 years, we're seeing more overs, but they're starting to adjust the numbers. We're going to come right back. We've got another big game, Dallas and the Colts.
Hi, I'm Al McMorty. I'm on absolute fire. Our Vegas Strip moves this year 24-3, 88% winners. And this week we're featuring the best deal of the entire season. You get a week of our Vegas Strip move plays, it's just $25. And amongst our winners is our Vegas Strip move Conference Championship Game of the Year. This play is out of a 17-0 system that's never lost in 31 years. And the 18th winner in a row is this Saturday. Call right now, toll free, 866-896-1628. 1 week of our powerful Vegas Strip moves, football and basketball, only $25. Call right now, 866-896-1628, and get on board and win big this week.
Hi, everybody. Scott Spreitzer from Smash Mouth Sports. What a weekend we had last week. Again, bookend Game of the Year winners to surround the entire weekend. We started out on Saturday with our non-conference knockout Game of the Year win, Texas Tech over Houston, and we finished up strong Sunday night football Game of the Year when San Diego clobbered the Colts, and then we wrapped it up on Monday night, side and total winners in Monday Night Football, San Francisco and the under. We're going to rack it up. We're going to do it again this week. We've got our college football conference championship Game of the Year going on Saturday. We've got a big Sunday underdog Game of the Year in the NFL and a full week of college basketball and NBA, all for just $25. All you have to do is call 1-866-896-1627. Get in on the winning action with Smash Mouth Sports from start to finish. 1-866-896-1627. Just $25 gets it all.
Welcome back. We've got a game here, Dallas visiting the Colts. Now, we all saw last week what San Diego did to the Colts and Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's a great quarterback. I mean, maybe the best ever. Who knows? You surround him with the right coaching staff and the right players, this guy can do a lot of things. And He hasn't won a lot of championships, but I don't know the reason for that. But the guy is fantastic.
Because it's tough to win a championship in the NFL.
That's very true. But this guy, I mean, there's so many holes in this team right now. They have so many injuries. It's like a walking MASH unit out. And now you have Dallas, who's completely out of it. We're one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Tons of talent on this team. Have changed the coach. Almost beat the Saints last week, except for a fumble near the end of the game. They very easily could have won that game. They got a little extra time off to prepare for this game, and the MASH unit is waiting for them. Now, are we going to bet on Peyton Manning to bounce back because he's Peyton Manning? But are we going to look at this and say this team is physically unable to play?
Well, the last thing I want to do is go against the Colts at home. Do you guys know that the last time they lost back-to-back games at home was?
38.
No, not that long ago. The start of the 2008 season. They're 19-2 since, but one of those games was against the Jets when they didn't give a shit. So I really don't want to go against Indianapolis here. Also, winning teams, when they're not laying more than 8.5 points at home off a home loss, they're 84-55 against the spread, including, we saw a few weeks ago, Pittsburgh blew out Oakland. We talked about that system here. 5 weeks back, New Orleans against Pittsburgh. I'm going to give a shaky nod to Indianapolis here, Dave. They're banged up, but I'm not going to fade them at home.
No. And the flip side of it, though, is the Cowboys had extra time to prep for this game. That Thanksgiving thing is nice. 3 extra days at this time of year.
And it always helps those Detroit Lions.
Well, but the Lions have been so bad that it couldn't happen.
I'm just raising the issue.
Now that they're a little better, I'm going to be...
3 days never helps Detroit.
Because they were just totally inept. But for a good football team...
And Matt Millen was there.
Well, they had awful players.
Yeah.
Awful. They're a more competitive squad now. It'll be interesting to see if it benefits them a little bit more. Dallas, they're on a little bit of a roll, but they didn't win that football game last week. I'll be curious to see what happens with that. The Colts really need this game. I mean, look, they're not out of it yet. There's still a game over 500, so they're still in the hunt. They really need this football game. I'm going to go with the under in the game, though, because, look, the Colts are just not the Colts right now. Peyton Manning's throwing interceptions because he has no time. His receivers aren't very good. The Cowboys' offense done better lately, but it's still, it's John Kitna. It's not Romo, and it's limited.
I'm not knocking John Kitna.
No, I know, but
the guy's done a great job.
He finishes drives, which Romo wasn't doing.
Yeah,
not bad, but there's still
I got to give hats off to him. He's done a good job.
Well, he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing out there. He can play in any
He's always played
system.
with bad teams. He never really had anything. He's got some talent with him now.
Who do you like in this game?
I think I lean to the under. I don't have a strong call in this game, but the under would be the first thing that attracts me in this game. I think you'll see the ball being run a little more in this football game. Maybe the Colts need to do that a little bit too. Give Manning a break. I mean, he's getting chased all over the place back there.
Jim asked, are we going to back Peyton Manning just because he's Peyton Manning? No, I'm going to back him because he's Eli's brother. But I'll tell you, no, when I looked at that game last week, and
Archie's son.
And Archie's son. But I had San Diego last week. It was our Sunday night football game of the year. I'm not going against Indiana twice in a row at home. I think they're the right side of this particular football game. Dallas has a real rough time, and I'm going to wrap it up quickly with this. A real bad time with teams that throw the ball well, especially against teams that average at least 235 yards passing per game, which Indianapolis does. They're 5-17 against the spread the last 22 times when that's happened. And before San Diego, Indy was holding their opponents at home to less than 290 total yards per game. I'm going to back the Colts here, lay the 5.5.
Well, I'm going to go the over. I like the over. I don't think Dallas has the defense to stop the Colts. I'm not saying that the Colts can stop Dallas either, though. I think you're going to see an all-out war here. Ball in the air. Colts don't run the ball. They can't run the ball. Their offensive line's hurt. Their running backs are hurt. Ball's going to be in the air all day long. Go over. We'll be right back with some best bets. This is it. This Sunday, my pro game of the year wins. I've isolated a play so strong, it can only be released as the biggest game of the 2010 NFL season. Cash in with this huge winner as well as a pair of big game releases on Saturday in college hoops and football, including a $500 platinum play, all for just $25. Then take it home Sunday with my 2010 pro game of the year. I'm 11-3-1. That's 79% with this annual release since 1995. And this Sunday, I'm guaranteeing an easy winner or the rest of the NFL season is free on me. Make the call right now. 1 866-841-1655 for a monster weekend featuring my Pro Game of the Year. That's 1-866-841-1655.
My best bet, the under in the Kansas City-Denver game. Your best bet, my Vegas Strip Move Week of Winners. All 7 days, football and basketball, including my Vegas Strip Move Conference Championship Game of the Year. It's just $25. 24-3 this year on our Vegas Strip Moves in football. Call right now, toll free, 866-896-1628. That's 866-896-1628. Dave?
All right, Al, I'm going to go opposite you. I'm going to take the over in the Chiefs-Broncos game, and I think it's going to be much a rerun of what we saw a few weeks ago between these two teams. College basketball game of the month, which I could also just call college basketball game that I like a ton. I think this is going to be a really easy winner today. That's the big game. Plus, you're going to get 2 premium plays, and this is going to be an outstanding 3-0 slate. Great guarantee, just $25. 1-866-841-1665. Make sure and make the call. Scott?
Thanks, Dave. My best bet this week is the Colts minus the points over the Dallas Cowboys. We have been on a red-hot game of the year run. 4-0, 100% of the last few weeks, including last week's knockout game of the year in college football with Texas Tech, Sunday night game of the year with San Diego when they crushed Indianapolis. We're going to do it again this week. We've got a huge card going on right now, starting on Saturday with my college football conference championship game of the year, continuing on Sunday with the big underdog game of the year in the NFL, and you're going to get a full week of both pro and college baskets. It's all yours for only $25. All you have to do is call 1-866-896-1627. That's 866-896-1627. Jim?
Like Dave, I'm going to go opposite Al. I'm going over with the Denver-Kansas City game. Look for tons of points. And don't forget, write this number down, 1-866-841-1655. It's my NFL game of the year. Like Dave said, he likes this game a lot. I love this game a lot. My NFL game of the year, I'm 11-3-1 since 1995 with this game. That's 79%. 1-866-841-1655. Plus, you get 2 big bonus plays, including a platinum release for $500. You don't have to pay $500, just $25. Make sure you make the call, 1-866-841-1655, and you get the NFL game of the year absolutely free, just for $25. 3 big games. Call now. And next week, we'll be back here on Friday with more analysis, college football, college basketball, pro and college, whatever. We got it all. Come back next Friday.